Welcome to Business Talk, our weekly University of Rio Grande OSU South Center's podcast show. We are here at the University of Rio Grande TV studio. Not only are we doing live internet radio through Blog Talk Radio, but we are also live on Jackson Educational Access Channel, Channel 17, and the Rio Grande Channel. Our podcasts are archived and placed on YouTube for your viewing and listening again. Our mission is simple: to promote the University of Rio Grande and its diverse educational programs, to promote the Ohio State University South Centers and its many business technology programs, promote the many great business and organizations in our area, and finally, promote Southern Ohio, a great place to live, learn, and enjoy life to the fullest. I'm Jason Winters, co-host and director of the Center for Small Business Entrepreneurship, and with me today is Michael Thompson, Instructional Design and Media Services. Both of us are with the University of Rio Grande. Also, co-host Patrick Dengel is with us today. He is a business development specialist with the OSU South Centers. Welcome to our show.
You know, Jason and Mike, it's been a while since we've been able to have a distinguished guest on our program. I have known this lady, Terri Fetheroff, who happens to be the director of the Vinton County Commissioners Development Department, for many, many years, even before the turn of the century. I always wanted to say that. Terri is an individual that has worked with a lot of businesses, a lot of people, and I feel that we are very fortunate to have her on our show. Terri's going to talk about what it takes to start running a business. And Terri, welcome. Thank you for coming to our show.
Thank you, Patrick.
Terri, before we begin, how about if you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. I actually live in Vinton County, have done for about 27 years now. My husband and I chose that as a place to make a permanent home. For several years, I was unlucky enough to be forced to work outside the county. And in 1999, a wonderful opportunity presented itself that Vinton County's Development Department was looking for someone to run their small business program, to take it to another level. They'd had loans there and had never really done any sort of training to help people make sure that they were ready to begin those small businesses. And so I started out doing that, have been operating that program for about 13 years now, before the turn of the century.
Before the turn of the century, I think that's great. These younger people here.
Correct. In the last year, then I ended up stepping up as interim and eventually as director of the development department just in August. But this is still one of my very favorite programs that we operate out of the development department.
And I think you should be feel very fortunate to be involved, because I've had the opportunity to view a couple of your different lessons, and you really get the potential business owners prepared. When you sit down with a business owner, like all of us, we've seen individuals that are looking to start their own business for a variety of different reasons. And I know that Jason and Mike, they have their own businesses. They're very actively involved with students here at the University of Rio Grande. As a matter of fact, you are an adjunct faculty here.
I was for several years with a program, yes.
Huh, very good. And also with Ohio University.
No, I was not an adjunct faculty member at Ohio University. I'm a graduate 3 times over from Ohio University. Took me a few times to get it right. But I enjoyed my time working with Rio students very much.
Hey, and I know many of us see a variety of different individuals wanting. What, in your estimation, what are some things about small people? Well, let me try to get.
I was going to ask, because you said prepare.
Is that a politically correct term?
I was going to ask, since you said prepare people to run a business, how much is that prepare or weed out? Like, would you have to tell somebody, you're not quite the right personality type to do this? Or do you take that person and you help them become that?
That's a really good question, Mike. I would say that I don't know that I've ever told someone outright, you're not cut out to run a small business. On the other hand, I like your term weeding out. We call that self-selection, because when we run, at least the advanced version, the 10 session, usually over 10 week training, 2 hours plus interactive time with me off and on, before class, after class, that's 2.5 months. That really creates a situation where someone can ponder whether or not they're able to wrap their head around all of this.
Because if I don't do it well, that could have some pretty bad ramifications.
It could. And occasionally I will see someone who has great ideas. They are provided an opportunity to polish them in their business plan, which is essentially the exam for our class, is handing in a finished business plan. But even so, I may see a gap there, that they're not really good at handling paperwork. So I can make the suggestion that, you know what, if you don't enjoy the paperwork and you don't like doing it, maybe that's something that you could hire out. It's no different than us making a recommendation that someone hire an accountant to keep their books for them. So I don't know that I've ever told anybody, hey, wait a minute, but I'm really thorough when I read their business plans and interact with them. And my role there is to play devil's advocate and ask them if they're ready to do this.
Yeah, because like me, I do videography and photography, and I'm a creative person, so I'm not necessarily very organized and number oriented. So that's what my wife does.
That's exactly what I was getting ready to say.
'Cause
Yeah.
you like barbecue, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I like barbecue too, but
Yeah, what's the
Yeah.
barbecue?
but frequently, I think what you have touched on a point that I am very happy when I see a husband and wife in a class together, because it indicates to me that, one, you've got familial support, which is just absolutely necessary for somebody to make a success of starting a small business. But frequently it also means that they're going to share roles in some way. That,
And they have the buy-in. One's not going to be railroaded.
well, yeah, you hope that anyway. And I am not a social worker. I'm not a family counselor. I don't get involved in that. Yes, sometimes I have private opinions about what I believe somebody will be, whether or not they'll be successful, or whether or not there's a spouse that's truly completely on board with an idea. But frequently, and it's unfortunate because I think it reinforces gender roles, is that frequently you do see wives participating because they want to get the accounting part, the bookkeeping part, the administrative part. To date, I haven't seen the wife that's the entrepreneur and the husband being the support. I'm hoping that before I retire, I see that.
Why is that?
I don't know. I don't know if it's just reinforcing gender roles. I will tell you that, to a large extent, I think women are detail oriented and also able to perhaps multitask a bit more. But that's just a personal commentary.
Do you have females that are the entrepreneurs?
Yes, most definitely. It's just I'm making the point that I don't see their spouses necessarily there.
Because they usually hold another job, probably.
And many of our couples, one of them holds another job. Sometimes we have folks coming to us, they're holding a job, they're wanting to start a business. Wife's also offering to help, with the business. And so it's going to be a family type thing. I'm always happy that people don't leave their existing employment before they make that decision to leap. Mm-hmm. And for some of them, they're able to test drive a business. I'm guessing your business would be typical of that. You haven't left your employment here at Rio Grande yet.
He's
right?
not allowed to go anywhere for a while.
And so but your business lends itself to being able to do it after hours, over the weekends, to be able, and so for many people, if they're able to do that, I kind of encourage them to do that. It's like putting your toe in the water to find out what the temperature is. And in this day and age, until you've made sure that you're going to be able to get to that break-even point of full-time entrepreneurship, it's a really, many people would say it's being overly cautious, but I just think it's just something that means that they're being very thoughtful.
I'm sure that when you're talking about putting your business plan together, you create an eye-opening experience for them. I know a lot of people will come in and they'll have the best idea in the world, but they're overlooking some important factors like marketing, like competition, like financial resources. And I'm assuming that you go through all that and you put, I don't know, the light in the mirror that helps them see everything else around them.
I'm usually waving a light around, yes. Whether they're following me or not is debatable. But yes, you're correct. In those 10 sessions, we do a couple of introductory sessions that ask, are you cut out to be in business? And there's a lot of self-evaluation, self-analysis there where, are you able to follow through on something? Or do you require the structure of employment? Do you need somebody else telling you what the hours of your business are going to be? Or can you do that? And we do talk about familial support. Does your family like this idea? Do you think you can do this and keep family commitments? Can you be there for your kids' school programs or teachers meetings and that kind of thing?
Let's say, like, if you hire your children, you got maybe a little pizza shop or something.
Sure.
You hire your kids. How are you going to handle it if they're late? They don't hold up their end of the bargain.
Well, I'm hoping that that business owner is going to treat them as they would any other employee, because usually the goal in hiring children is to make sure that they get a taste of being responsible, that they may as well be working for you rather than it used to be delivering newspapers. These days, jobs for young people are really hard to find, and I think that's what actually drives the desire of many business owners to hire their children these days, because there aren't a whole lot as many part-time jobs out there as there used to be. Many of those have been taken by adults.
I always told my kids not to work for family because they give you a longer leash, and you need that other person to tell you got to be here.
I would tend to agree with you, Mike. I mean, you're not off base there. It's. I always caution folks when we do a little bit about hiring, and most of the business that I'm talking to, they're probably not going to be hiring employees for a while. But I always just throw that in. I helped my dad operate a small business for several years. I've run a consulting business but don't have any employees. In the case of my dad's retail business, we kind of hammered out some of the things that we saw as difficulties in hiring what generally were young folks that didn't get the fact that just because they'd been to a great party on Friday night meant that they could show up on Saturday morning and they'd be on time, but they'd not be really capable of interacting with customers for a while. Anyway, and my background is in HR. That's actually kind of what brought me to this when I took the business training job, because that's really what it started out as. I had just finished getting a degree in business and in human resources, and with a focus on training and helping folks assess what their skill sets were and others that they needed to gain to be good. And my anticipation was I was going to be using that in the realm of helping a company make these folks better employees. And instead, this opportunity came up, and the former director at the development department, Mr. Reed, said, "I think you would be really good at this too." And I had some other background that we felt would help me in dealing with small businesses and recognizing that many small businesses get into trouble even as they are becoming successful.
What do you What are some of the causes of why they are in trouble starting out?
They haven't planned. They have not done a business plan, as Jason pointed out.
I'm going to suggest one of the biggest is cash flow.
I would totally agree with you. But I've also seen folks that made money, and that kind of maybe rolls into what Mike mentioned about employees. You think you've gotten your business established. You're successful. You're able to call yourself that, and I would say you're entitled to in many of these businesses. And it's time that you are able to not go in and open up on Saturday morning. So you hire somebody. The problem is that unless you've cloned this person, that person is not going to be running the business like you have.
They don't have the same values.
They don't have the same values. They don't have the same skills. And many times it's not as extreme as saying that they're putting the fox in the chicken coop, but it is the idea that they're not as capable of running it. They're not as good with customer service. You as an entrepreneur understand that customer service is number one, that most small businesses in Southern Ohio cannot compete based on just being the lowest cost provider of products or services.
And like my wife told me once, I thought maybe I might get somebody to cover like a wedding videography job for me. It's like, you really can't do that because it's more of an artistic thing. They are hiring you.
Yes.
And your eye, and it's not something you can like hire out.
That's right. Now for a small retail store where you need a cashier, you can hire that person.
Right.
But again, it also puts the burden on the employer to make sure that that person is trained and they know the expectations. And it's not just being able to operate the cash register. It's also knowing how to greet those customers when they walk in the door, to make sure that they leave happy, to make sure that you provided them with everything that they need to make sure that they walk out with a full bag of groceries, if that's the case, or whatever else that they came in looking for.
Yeah, I've seen some kids supposed to be work at a counter, and they have like little earbuds in and stuff, and it's not good. I mean, you don't think, as a person going into a business, you're walking up to a person with some headphones on. Am I not supposed to bother you?
Right. And that's another concern that I have about the fact that many young people can't find part-time jobs these days because back before the turn of the century, back before I was an adult, teenagers had more opportunities for getting their feet wet as and I use that term loosely, as professionals, but they could go work at an ice cream parlor. That was my very first real job, besides babysitting, of course, was working in an ice cream parlor. Now, I'm lucky that I had professional parents that raised me to communicate well, to look people directly in the eye when I was talking to them, to be courteous, yes sir, no sir, thank you ma'am, have a good day kind of thing. But good employers will even take kids that are kind of diamonds in the rough if they see a competency there, and work with them to make sure that they develop those skills. So I don't have any preconceived notions about if you want to put your kids to work in your business, that may be the only opportunity they get, but you've got to deal with them as their employer, not as their parent, and that's tough.
I have also found that employers are also not looking for the parents to come and sell their children for a job.
Oh, heavens no. If you can't walk in, whether you're 15 or 25, and have a job interview, no.
My wife was telling me there was one situation where a 22-year-old applied for a position and was turned down, and the mother had called the employer and wanted to speak with the person and perhaps tell a little bit more about what the
they didn't know how cool their kid was, so I have to let you know.
That's right. And the individual said, well, it's a sales position, he has to be a little bit more aggressive. And we're seeing that
a
great deal.
We are, and it's not everywhere, and it's not every teenager, but yeah, I think that's a problem. And but a good kid that walked in the door, that if they had the nerve to walk in the door and ask for a job, I would hope an employer would assess the skills that they bring to whatever it is that they're doing, whether they need them to run a cash register or bag groceries or whatever it may be. And oh my goodness, grab that kid, because they showed initiative of even, walking in themselves and saying, do you have a position open? And then you can always polish it up a bit. You can train them that, when you interact with customers, please say, ma'am and sir, or whatever you want to,
Be courteous.
Be courteous,
Yeah.
Open doors for people, particularly if you're working in a business, then that may be something that they would want to encourage you to do as well. But in any case, I think a lot of folks overlook the good teenagers.
Yes.
That we've got out there. And again, it's the economy that really worries me, that we have a whole generation almost, or a whole, what do they call those groups of cohorts of kids?
Yeah, it used to be Generation X and Y and
right, whatever the ones are that are about about 14 to 18 right now. Those 18-year-olds, some of them may never have had jobs before they go away to college.
Right.
And I look on jobs, even part-time jobs, as a proving ground to decide what you want to do with your life. I was lucky that I ran an ice cream machine and had to put the cute swirls on ice cream cones. And like I said, my dad was a professional. Occasionally I go to the office with him and putter around filing stuff in cabinets. And then I flip burgers on a grill. And
see, they never let me around knives or anything sharp.
Well, didn't you wear
I can understand why.
Didn't you wear a helmet as a child?
But then I had some office experience, and just a variety of things. I've shelved books in the children's room at my local library as an after-school job, and so just a variety of things. And I had to put my first dream aside. I really wanted to grow up and be an archaeologist, but then they started talking about, well, you go out and you live in tents, and I'm like, tents are okay for camping for a week, not for months on end.
Three-sided open house.
Yeah, whatever. But I was lucky enough to have that many generations of kids worked at the they did deliver newspapers. They did work at the local hardware store. They mowed lawns for their neighbors. We're not seeing that same group of kids, and it's through no fault of many of them that the jobs are just not available for them to get their feet wet, to find out what showing up for work is like. And guess what? To me, the biggest thing is getting that paycheck. Mm-hmm. Getting the reward for having done a great job.
Yeah, when I turned 16, I didn't ask my parents for another really dollar to do anything.
No.
Because I had a few jobs, mowing, and I worked at the store, and
oh, I forgot about being a farm laborer too. I did that part time too. So
pitching hay and all that thing.
I drove the tractor.
I purchased a small motorcycle washing dishes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really felt good.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I was only paid $1 an hour.
And your wife let you have the motorcycle?
I had to give most of the money to my wife. No.
And so I got to thinking about this when Patrick asked me about a topic. I was thinking about what makes good entrepreneurs. And we tend to look at, there's two groups of people that tend to walk in my door, Jason. Disgruntled employees or folks that have lost jobs because of the economy. Now those, I know that, when there was a massive layoff at a nearby factory or something, then that's not anything. Of course, they're looking for other opportunities. The disgruntled employees, I realize that a quiz that I give those folks when they walk in the door kind of encourages them that if you weren't happy where you were before, maybe you're cut out to be in business. And then I took the time to read down through the rest of the quiz and realized that a lot of the other skills that we're looking for, either as a good entrepreneur or as a good employee, are the same.
Yes,
what are
yes.
those?
Yeah, share some of those.
Well, many people leave because they feel like they're not being valued or rewarded. And sometimes rewarding, and I know this from my HR background, rewarding is not necessarily a higher paycheck. It's being recognized for having gone above and beyond. So that's kind of that starting point. From there, then being a good entrepreneur or being a good employee requires persistence. Being able to, I call it stick-to-itiveness. Just being able to keep your nose down and keep plodding along. Jason pointed out the idea of cash flow. Well, when you've got zero in the bank, do you just give up? Or do you go back and open the door again tomorrow to keep that business going? That's persistence on the part of an entrepreneur. An employee may just be having trouble struggling with something that their boss has put on their desk and asked them to do.
Sometimes employees don't necessarily understand a lot of the behind the scenes. I know that when all of us have worked with employers, all we see is the money coming in.
Yeah.
We don't see the expenses that go out.
Right.
And
They might hear the owner say, "Well, we turned a profit of $500,000, and I'm still getting paid $1 over minimum."
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
And
there's insurance, there's the
That's right.
cost of the property and
Right.
everything
Right,
else.
right,
Well, and just because you made a $100,000 sale doesn't mean that you've got that cash in the bank yet.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, the collections are another fun part. And so, I think a lot of the responsibilities are on the owner, okay, to keep happy employees, to take those diamonds in the rough, tell them I am asking you to do this project and asking you to be persistent with it, and because it is a component of what makes us what we are.
This is how it fits into the big picture.
This is how it fits in. And just by explaining sometimes is the reward to the employee. Letting them in. It's no longer a state secret. I need you to do the accounting so I know how much money there are in my books at the end of today.
So they feel some sort of ownership on
Buy-in, most
Right.
definitely. And then asking them to be adaptable and flexible. Businesses change. And we've pointed out, in the last few years with the economy being the way it is, only agile businesses survive. Well, we need to have agile employees, adaptable employees that are able to change, shift gears, do maybe multiple things compared to what they used to do, because the businesses is having to be a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more frugal. Maybe you lose an employee, you can't replace that employee. Everybody takes on a little bit more responsibility.
That's why I don't have as much hair on my head, because
Yeah.
I've changed hats so often.
Well, and the camera here is pretty good showing my hair, but there's more white in my hair than there was before I met Patrick. Come to think of it.
Hey, me too.
And you've been losing hair.
Yeah. One of the other things that we look for and a good entrepreneur has is that they're analytical. They're like you said, Mike, earlier. They are the folks that they get. That you need to have some structure. You need to have the responsibility thing pretty well down pat, and that also kind of segues into maturity too. But also they need to be creative. So you can't get stuck in a rut. If at the end of the month there's $0 in the bank, you better be pretty creative about where the money's going to come from to pay the electric bill tomorrow. And so having a balance of being able to think things through, fairly complex thought situations, analytical, but also being creative at the same time, not being stuck in the rut.
I have found that business owners cannot stop working after 5 o'clock.
Oh, heavens no. And that goes back to whether or not the family buys in. If they know you're going to put 60 hours a week in, they're a lot more supportive.
Right.
They'll prepare by doing the crock pot
It is
thing
not
for
a
you. Or putting
9
food
to
in
5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we kind of already talked about the maturity, which sometimes that's the biggest part of what I end up kind of teaching in the classroom. The fact that they have to show up for class on time, that they accomplish something that maybe they never have before. Sometimes that's the biggest thing they learn, not operating the business, but some of those intangible skills that really have nothing to do with business ownership.
Terri, it has been a pleasure. I know you had 7 amusing stories you wanted to share, but we are out of time.
Oh, no.
And so you have to keep those amusing stories till the next time
I
that you
will.
come back. Next week we have Greg Davis. Greg is going to talk about economic development on at Ohio State University program. I'm Patrick.
I'm Jason.
I'm Mike, and thanks for watching.